What is rape culture? If you haven't heard the term before, rape culture is basically acknowledging that we live in a society that normalizes or diminishes rape through the bombardment of images, language, laws, and social attitudes.
Well, considering the fact that raping somebody is illegal, um, it's clear that we don't condone it, which means, as I have said several times before, we cannot possibly live in a rape culture. So, with that being said, I guess we could end the video right here, but I mean, clearly we've got some more to get through.
It's a culture in which victim blaming is not just present, but common, and caveats like, well, what did she expect going home with him? And, oh, she was drunk, wasn't she? And, well, she slept with him before, and look at that skirt she was wearing, are routinely invoked to excuse perpetrators as having just kind of done what everyone would have expected them to do, done what a red-blooded Aussie male would do. Can't say fairer than that. I mean, she did go home with him.
Yeah, but as I have discussed several times on my channel before, I mean, how many people, like, really blame the victim, you know? I mean, how many people really verbatim say it's your fault that you were raped? As I said, you know, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, okay? Unless you are the cause to the effect, and it's not your fault. It's never really a victim's fault if they get raped, and you don't really deserve to be raped. However, as many people have said before, that doesn't mean there are not some factors that you do have control over that you can use to minimize the chance of you getting raped. Okay, that is entirely possible. And again, it's not saying it's your fault if you have been raped. It's just saying that it is possible to help diminish the chance of that happening. That's all it's saying. I mean, you can be a really good defensive driver, and if somebody crashes into your car, and you know, it's a car accident, I mean, there were some things you could have done defensively to prevent the amount of damage that happened to the car. That's all we're saying.
It's that kind of language. It's the language of lawmakers who use words like honest rape and forcible rape and legitimate rape to portray the fact that they believe that there are actually two kinds of rape.
Well, no. Let me first open this up by saying that, well, there are different kinds of cats. You have house cats, you have tigers, and you have lions. You know, they're all cats, right? But they're different kinds of cats, and because they have different characteristics. Something that you probably learned back in the 3rd grade, right? Now, you know, that's when I learned about lions and tigers and stuff. That being said, I guess you really have about 2 different types of rape. You have your coercive type of rape, you know, rape where it's not forcible. This is the type of rape where, you know, the woman never said no, but you kept going. I think that's kind of how it's described a lot. And then you have the second type of rape, which would be forcible penetration, you know, violent rape, where you get held down or you get beaten and they forcibly penetrate you. I mean, if you really think about the justice system or the legal system, there are different types of degrees for every type of crime. You have different types of degrees of, you know, like manslaughter, different degrees of murder, you know, premeditated, or I think there's different, I don't know all of the legal names specifically. Then you have, of course, you know, like I said, different degrees of theft, different degrees of arson. You have different degrees of all types of crime. So, okay, so, I mean, it's not weird or odd that there are different degrees of, you know, the crime of rape, too. I mean, there's different degrees of all crimes, and there's different types of more or less anything and everything.
There's the very, very, very small incidents of real rape, and then there are all of the overwhelming incidents of rape where women are actually just lying about it because they are so embarrassed by the fact that they've allowed something to enter their shame cave other than the Holy Spirit. So that's rape culture, and I'm just going to talk you through a series of examples now of what I think rape culture looks like, and some of them are local and some of them are international, because, yay, rape culture exists everywhere. We can all share it.
Yeah, there might actually be a rape culture against men in prison. However, as far as a rape culture against women, yeah, there's no rape culture against women. You know, actually, if you really think about it, the only time people ever really actually, you know, blame the victim is when the woman had willingly drank some alcohol or did some drugs, and she willingly had sex at the time. That's the only time people ever really either call her stupid or say, well, maybe if she hadn't been drinking, she would have had sex with some guy she didn't find to be all that attractive, or have sex with some guy she never wanted to have sex with, you know? However, on the other hand, lots of people make lots of different jokes about men getting raped in prison, and I myself have been guilty of doing that too. And even the Boondocks has also made jokes about men who get raped in prison. So, I mean, lots of people don't even care or take it seriously that most violent rapes actually do occur in prison. They don't actually occur outside of the penitentiary. So, there might possibly be a rape culture, but it certainly would not be against women. I mean, think about it. Like, how many times have you guys ever heard of, don't drop the soap, I mean...
So rape culture is Peter Spider Everett after the 2010 AFL Grand Final, responding to allegations, and it's very important, this word allegedly. You'll speak to people who don't believe that rape culture exists, and you'll speak to people who don't believe that men can ever be charged with rape, because of course women are always lying. Very, very intent on protecting the due process of the legal system, only in cases of sexual assault, where they remind you consistently that this just happened allegedly.
You mean how a person is innocent until proven guilty in every crime possible?
So, Peter Spider Everett, responding to the allegations after the 2010 AFL Grand Final that a sexual assault had occurred in the home of one of the Collingwood players. Now that has since been resolved, and if you do have a chance, do read Anna Crean's Night Games, because it's a brilliant exploration of sex, power and culture. But him responding to that with the following tweet: "Girls! When will you learn that at 3 a.m. when you go home drunk with a guy that it's not for a cup of Milo?" Allegedly. It's Kerry-Ann Kennelly responding to that tweet by inviting Peter Spider Everett onto her show and sympathising with him over the poor fate of footballers who have strays throw themselves at them all the time and get them in trouble. It's Channel 9 responding to the dismay and outrage, and I am grateful that it was given, because not everyone likes to talk out about rape culture. But Channel 9 responding to that outrage by issuing a statement that said, in regards to the segment on Kerry-Ann's show this morning, what she was talking about when she talked about strays was alcohol-fueled situations in which both girls and guys must take the blame. Rape culture is reducing rape to an alcohol-fueled situation.
Do you mean to tell me that you genuinely don't think that it's possible for two drunk people to have consensual sex? Because if you do, that just shows how remarkably ignorant you are. Like, you do know one of the immediate effects of alcohol consumption is that it makes you want to have sex more, right? It's like, do you know that? Do you? Because if you did, well, you probably wouldn't be saying that completely asinine shit that just came out of your mouth.
Rape culture is Channel 9 responding to these things with such dismissive tones that it reinforces to people that it's an alcohol-fueled situation and not an actual assault on their bodies. Looking further abroad, rape culture is Daniel Tosh, who's a comedian standing in front of a live audience and responding to a woman who'd taken umbrage at one of his jokes about rape by saying, "Wouldn't it be funny if like 5 guys just came down and raped this woman right now? Wouldn't that be hilarious?"
The messed up part about that whole Daniel Tosh situation was that a couple of minutes before he said that joke was, he asked his audience, "What do you guys want to hear a joke about?" And his audience, a majority of the people replied, "Tell a rape joke." Like, the people in his audience told him to tell a joke about rape. So he told one of the jokes about rape, and one of the ladies who wrote the blog post and bitched about it took offense to it. And that's when Daniel Tosh replied with, "Wouldn't it be funny if 5 guys jumped up and raped her right now?" 1, it was a joke, and 2, it would have been a bit of irony, okay? I mean, a joke is a statement, by definition, something you're not supposed to take seriously. And what would have made that joke is the irony of this woman complaining about being raped, about to get raped. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a tactless joke, yes, but that's Daniel Tosh's humor. And granted, I'm not really a big fan of Daniel Tosh. I don't really think he's all that funny. Not because of his rape jokes, just my sense of humor personally. But if he wants to tell a joke about whatever he wants to tell a joke about, I mean, he can do that, because a joke is not something you're supposed to take seriously.
Rape culture is also his comedy mates then defending him, because comedy is sacred and women's bodies aren't.
No, comedy is subjective, not sacred. Of course it's not bloody sacred, mate. I mean, he made a joke about rape. Anyway, So, with that being said, that it is subjective, they're defending the point that anyone could have found humor in his statement. That's what those people are defending. They're not saying that what he. Okay, whatever. Let's just keep going.
Rape culture is raising boys in an environment and a society that teaches them that they have an entitlement to women's bodies.
An entitlement to women's bodies. Let me tell you something, lady. I have never felt entitled to a woman's body. That is part of the reason as to why I feel an incredible need to prove my worthiness to her. Let me rephrase that. Felt an incredible need to prove my worthiness to her back when I was in high school. That's what I spent, 3 years of my time doing, is trying to prove to ladies that I'm a great person that they should be with. If I genuinely felt entitled to these motherfuckers, I wouldn't have felt the need to prove that to them.
And that is how things like Steubenville, Ohio happens. That's how things like the Roastbusters in Auckland happens, where boys think that it is so much their right to treat a woman's body as they please, that not only will they do it in front of all of their friends, rape an unconscious woman repeatedly, but they'll film it. They'll actually document the evidence and put it on the internet for everyone to see what a big man they are.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, that was incredibly stupid. More than that, they were all drunk, so they weren't making the best decisions ever. And that was just stupid. That was just dumb. Like, they did that shit to themselves, honestly. And you know what? They went to jail, and they deserve to go to jail. Because raping somebody is a flipping horrible thing. However, we cannot take these drunk people who raped somebody who had drank way too much and was underage drinking, and then try to paint all of society as being able to condone that. Because, well, clearly, since you don't condone it, and since nobody else really condones it, I guess that kind of proves we don't live in a rape culture now, doesn't it?
In Auckland, it's the police not doing anything about it for years, even though they knew about it, because they said we couldn't do anything about it. Rape culture is reinforcing to young girls that they don't have the right to feel safe.
Yeah, but what about boys? And among other things, do we really have a right to be safe? I mean, if feeling safe is a feeling, and you can learn martial arts to get the feeling that you're a little more in control, well then that would be a solution to this whole not feeling safe thing. And I'm just saying, if you just want to feel safe.
Rape culture is people telling women that protecting themselves from rape is like property theft. That, it's not that I believe that rape is okay, but, if you're going to leave your car parked on a street with the keys in the ignition and walk away, can you really expect that someone's not going to come along and steal it?
Do you deserve to get your car stolen? No. Did you make it really easy for your car to be stolen? Yeah. Did you do everything in your power to make sure your car wouldn't have been stolen? No. See how that goes?
And I say to that the two things that I think when I think people calling property theft into account for this is that, one, my vagina isn't a car.
The same way an axe can isn't a jar of mayonnaise, motherfucker.
And if it was, I would have saved a lot more money in taxis over the years, and then I'd be able to fix its brake pads. But secondly, we're not disembodied from our bodies.
Duh!
Our vaginas aren't cars that we can walk away from and leave. The only way that analogy works is if I'm sitting in the car and you come and you open the car and you drag me out of it and you steal my fucking car.
Which is something people still do anyway, and that is the point of the analogy. You can do X, Y, and Z to help minimize the risk of bad things from happening to you. That's what it's saying. I mean, we could have just as easily had used the analogy that, if you don't want to get attacked by someone wielding a knife, you would learn several different ways to disarm the knife. You can still get sliced upside the head with the knife. If someone comes from behind you, they can still slit your throat. However, you can still do some things to minimize the risk. That is all the analogy means. It's really that simple.
Your vagina is not a vehicle. But this is what rape culture looks like. Rape culture is pretending that rape culture doesn't exist.
Well, isn't that something, right? Rape culture is pretending that rape culture doesn't exist. I mean, talk about the catch-22 to end all catch-22s, right? I mean, the mere fact that people pretend rape culture doesn't exist is proof that it does exist. I mean, there's no way to acknowledge that it doesn't exist if you feel that way about it. I mean, if you're that engrossed in the idea that we live in a culture that condones rape, which by definition certainly is not America. Even then, there is a huge issue with this whole rape culture thing, and that huge issue that I've touched on a lot is the fact that rape is a crime that only men can commit, and only women can be raped in the legal system. But that's not true, though. I mean, men rape other men, and women rape men. Even transsexual people rape other people, you know. Evil exists in a multitude of forms, okay? And we have to combat evil by calling it out, seeing what it looks like, and then doing good to defeat that. Okay? So we need to stop acting like only men rape women, and that's all that rape culture is. Because honestly, you're not going to find very many men who want to hurt women for no fucking reason.
It's people preferring to believe that the women in their lives are potential victims, rather than accepting that the men in their lives are potential predators.
Regardless of any way you put that statement, it doesn't really matter, because it's the same fucking statement. I'll explain that really fast. It's saying that women are potential victims, as opposed to saying that men are potential rapists, or men are potential predators, or perpetrators, or however you want to say that. You do understand you're saying the same fucking thing, right? So what the fuck is your problem?
Because people like to talk about rapists as being evil monsters who lurk in the streets and shadows, and we, the women, have to protect ourselves against them. I'm not saying that rape is good, girls. I'm just saying, can't you just learn to take care of yourselves? Girls, when will you learn that the world is full of evil monsters and you have to protect yourselves?
Well, what the bloody hell do you want them to do, Mike? Do you not want them to protect themselves from rapists? Bloody hell! Ugh.
Rape culture is assuming that we haven't been raised protecting ourselves, believing in the state of our own vulnerability since the very days that we were first walking out away from our parents.
Yeah, well, if this is true, how come every woman I've met doesn't know any level of martial arts, or does any type of regular exercise, or know any type of kung fu? Like, I've only met a couple of women who know any type of martial arts, and that's like taekwondo. I mean, and even then, isn't that just something you're supposed to do? I mean, shouldn't you just be prepared for bad situations? I mean, that's like getting upset at every building that was ever created that has fire extinguishers in there. That's like saying, well, instead of putting fire extinguishers in those buildings, you guys should just not start a fire.
And on that note, actually, in the evil monsters, rape culture denies the reality of rape.
Yeah, go ahead. Made it this far. Keep feeding me the bullshit.
That most of it doesn't happen on the streets. Most of it happens in the home. It's done to us by men we know, men we love, men we may even be related to. That's what rape culture looks like. And so that's a very sort of somber kind of view of the world that we live in, but the world that people don't want to talk about because rape, it's not nice. We don't want to talk about it. It's not nice. It's not nice. It's a hemorrhoid removal operation.
If we're not supposed to talk about it, then why do you have a 10-minute speech talking about it? More than that, if we're not supposed to talk about it, then why does every feminist that I've ever seen have some video or some blog post about getting raped or men being potential rapists or something to do with rape? I mean, if it was such a taboo topic to talk about, I mean, it doesn't really sound all that taboo to me when most feminists are always bringing up the fact that 1 in 5 women gets raped, even though that's a fallacious statistic. Continue.
On the television. I was pretty scared coming here to do this talk today because it's quite daunting standing in front of a room full of people and sharing your ideas on things.
Ironically speaking, I read once that the #1 fear that most people have is public speaking. Actually, I heard it during a Jerry Seinfeld stand-up comedy routine, but I did read it somewhere else too. And then I think my speech teacher told me that once. Think about that. The number one fear most people have is public speaking. Honestly, lady, you're not really special if that statement's true. You mean,
But this is the thing, is that standing here in front of people, in front of an audience, anyone doing that, it's scary and it's a good kind of fear. And I want to be liberated by my fear. I don't want to be imprisoned by it. And this is what I think. You know, Paul mentioned a comment before talking about terrorism. I do think it's an act of terrorism to raise girls to believe that the world is not safe for them. Because what it does is it forces us to diminish ourselves. It means that we take up less space than we are entitled to. We live in a world where women are taught they do not have the right to walk down the street at night because they don't have the access to the same space as men. And I think that that's an act of terrorism.
who teaches them this? Like, seriously, who tells them this? Who tells them this? I mean, you know, maybe it's because I'm not a woman. Maybe that's why I've never got the memo that I'm not allowed to walk down the street because I can't share the same space as a man. That statement doesn't even make any goddamn sense, considering the fact that women completely control the social sphere, so whatever. Continue with the BS.
And I will not negotiate with terrorists on those terms. So I do not engage people in conversations about why women need to protect themselves or why our vaginas are like cars. I just don't tolerate it. And this is what we all have to start doing.
Lady, let me teach you something about male psychology. Men are primarily left brain thinkers, okay? And in that sphere of left brain thinkers, what we do when we are faced with a problem is we try to solve it. We try to figure out solutions. And when you logically think about bad things happening to you in terms of physical violence, one of the very many solutions is protecting yourself. The other solution would be having someone to do it for you. Lady, when men are trying to tell you to protect yourself, it's not coming out of a place of, I really don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's not coming out of a place of misogyny. They're not telling you to protect yourself because they hate you, because if they hated you, well, they probably wouldn't tell you how to prevent bad things from happening to you on account of the fact that they hate you. If someone is trying to tell you how to defend yourself or how to avoid bad things from happening to you, it means that they care about you, okay? So, you saying that I don't want to participate in any conversation with somebody who's trying to tell me how to protect myself makes you sound like an idiot. Just saying.
I have a boyfriend, which I know is kind of crazy because as a, you know, obviously radical separatist lesbian feminist, as a lot of my fans on Daily Life call me, I'm not supposed to have a boyfriend, but, you know, I did fashion him out of gingerbread and bring him to life with a black voodoo magic swirling around in my devil's Datsun. But he exists.
Poor bastard never had a chance.
Now, and it still counts. And he often says to me, can we just make it through one dinner where you don't talk about rape? To which I reply, can we just make it through one of Earth's rotations around the sun where I can walk on the street with as much right to safety as you just because you have a penis?
Well, it looks like you already have that, mate, so why are you still complaining about it? You already have those rights. I don't understand why we still have 4 minutes left in your video to continue to complain about a right that you already fucking have. If you want to walk down the street by yourself, mate, you can do that. Now, if you don't feel safe doing it, that is because of you and your insecurities. It is not because of the world around you, mate. It's how you feel. Now, how you feel versus reality sometimes can be a lot different. Now, the places you can walk in may or may not be safe, but again, when it comes to feeling or having the right to be safe, you already fucking have that, so I don't understand what you're complaining about. But do continue. We still have a little bit more to get through.
And actually, statistically speaking, based on what we know about male-on-male violence, he is less likely to be safe on the streets than me. But that's not the way that we talk about violence and safety. It is convenient for people to make women afraid because it keeps us controlled. I understand that rape makes people uncomfortable. A lot of things make me uncomfortable. For example, I am uncomfortable with the fact that millions of girls and women are raped around the world each year, and only a handful of them ever see justice prevail.
You know, I'm gonna have to stop you right here. And you know what really, kind of drives me for a loop? Just a second ago, you said that your boyfriend was in more of a position to get hurt. And yet, after you say that, you're gonna go switch back and complain about how you have it worse somehow? Didn't you just say he was more like... Let's keep going.
I'm uncomfortable with the fact that because of the work that I do, I stand in front of an audience like this and I automatically think, which third of this audience has experienced sexual assault or violence or rape? And I'm uncomfortable with the fact that of that proportion of the audience, all of them will have been socialized at some point that you don't talk about these things in polite society.
Lady, there are lots of things that you are not supposed to talk about in polite society. You gonna complain about that too?
And I'm uncomfortable with the fact that as a white middle-class woman, it's hard for me to talk about rape. But it's even more difficult for a woman of colour, a disabled woman, a woman who's a sex worker, a woman who's living in poverty, a woman who doesn't live here. It's harder for those women to talk about something which is already hard for me to discuss. I'm uncomfortable with those facts. I get it. Rape is uncomfortable.
That's quite the understatement, don't you think?
But this is why we need to keep talking about it, and we need to keep disrupting people's comfortable lives with it. Because the result of that is that they actually do start to change. In all of the time that I've been writing and writing and writing about rape, in all of the emails that I've gotten from, peeling through the ones that say to me that I'm just jealous because no one wants to rape me because I'm too ugly. Because, of course, the only thing worse than being raped is being considered not pretty enough to be raped. Right, Tracy? In all of that, I also get emails from young girls that inspire me, who tell me that the things that I've written and the things that other women like me have written about rape, bringing this conversation into the national dialogue, have let them realize that they're not responsible for what happened to them. It's made them realize that it's not their fault. But even better than that is the emails I get from men who tell me that something about this conversation that we're having now has changed the way that they view the world. It's made them realize how privileged they are. It's made them realize how much entitlement men generally have to space and safety.
Lady, I don't know what you're talking about, this whole men feel entitled to their spaces and their safety. There have been several times when... Okay, let me tell you a quick story. Back in the day, I don't have a car, so the campus that I went to, FSCJ, was 1.5 miles from the high school, Robert E. Lee. So what I would have to do is I'd have to get my black ass up every morning, take the bus to Lee, I'd hang out with my friends for a couple of minutes, and then I'd have to walk 1.5 miles up to the campus. Now, in between that space was a not so well neighborhood, it was out in the project area. Well, no, I wouldn't say the project area, but not a very safe area. There have been several break-ins in that neighborhood that I had to walk through, or the outskirts of that neighborhood I had to walk through. There's also this huge German Shepherd that would run up to me and bark at the gate. I think the gate was about the halfway point from the school to FSCJ. So yeah, I go on to say that I was not always in a very particularly safe environment, and I never really felt super safe there because I was walking right next to the highway. If an accident ever happened and the car just spun out of control, I'm not here making this video. Again, I go on to tell the story to say that, lady, I don't know what you're talking about with this whole men feel entitled to safety, because I certainly didn't. That's why I had to learn several different martial arts in the event that something bad might happen to me. And even as an adult, something bad could still happen to me. And that is why I have learned how to defend myself. Okay? Granted, in a perfect world, bad things would never happen. But I don't know if they are or not. So, there's a proverb that I heard a friend of mine back in the 9th grade tell me. He said, I'd rather have something and not need it than need something and not have it.
And it's made them want to change things for the better. I received an email from a friend of mine the other day, or I say friend, but we went to school together. So, we haven't talked really in 20 years, but we're Facebook friends because that's how people catch up these days. And he sent me an email out of nowhere with a link to a meme, and it was just a Venn diagram of this is what causes rape. And it's things like alcohol, clothing, attitudes, rapists. And the rapist was in red, and the whole Venn diagram was in red. Because the only thing common to all experiences of rape is a rapist.
Yeah, you want to know what's common in all types of car accidents? Oh yeah, motor vehicles. Rape is caused by rapists. Well, considering the fact that that's the definition of the word rapist, it kind of goes without saying now, doesn't it?
That is the only thing that we can say causes rape, is a rapist. And the way that we talk about rape as if it's some kind of arbitrary thing that just happens to women, that we just walk out of the door one day and just accidentally step in a puddle of it because we weren't paying attention, that's how we remove responsibility from the problem. And I believe that to fix the problem, you have to name the problem. And I was really inspired by that email that he sent me, because it showed me that this guy, who I would say is kind of like pretty much your average Australian bloke, you know, he likes sports and he's a pretty good guy, he's kind of like on the middle of the fence politically. He doesn't have to be engaged in these topics because society enables him to not be engaged in them. But he has chosen to become engaged because of the things that he's been reading and because of the things that he's been hearing. And it means that he wants to change the world around him for the better. And I'm really inspired by that. And I think that that's why we need to keep talking about these things, even though it makes people uncomfortable, even though people don't like to think about it, even though they like to pretend that it doesn't exist. Because I would rather people be uncomfortable about rape than be complacent about it. Thank you.
Huh. Glad that seminar is over. So, now that that's done, can we talk about all of the feminists that ruins men's lives? Or all of the women that have ruined men's lives? Like, can we talk about all of those female pedophiles, you know, that rape their school children, you know, those boys that they're supposed to teach? And can we talk about all of those women who get pregnant by some rich guy and force him, you know, to pay child support and alimony in a relationship that he thought was amazing in, you know? Those are manipulative bitches, let's just call them what they are. You know, and can we talk about all of those innocent men in jail right now on some false rape allegations who are probably getting raped as we speak? Can we talk about that? Now that you're done talking about the rape culture that we clearly don't live in, considering the fact that nobody normal condones rape. Well guys, that's the end of her video and subsequently the end of mine. So go ahead and say thank you to BASSFZz Fleet for helping me out with this video again. I certainly appreciated all of the comments that he had and all the comments that weren't included are down in the comment section below. So guys, as always, if you like this video, please go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below, and as always, have a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.